Hello, and welcome to Cheers. That's one woman's opinion. Today we're doing our bonus episode for the birthday of Kelsey Grammer, who turns 71 years old today. And the movie that I rewatched was Down Periscope. This movie came out in 1996. It was directed by David S. Ward. It was written by Hugh Wilson, who passed away in 2018 from lung cancer, Andrew Kurtzman, who passed away in 2025. I did not find a cause. And this one was interesting because he actually was not listed on IMDb as having passed away. I was like, oh, maybe I can see if I can get him for an interview. And as I was looking up information, I came across an Instagram post from one of his fellow um, co-writers when he wrote on SNL, and they had posted that they had just found out he had passed away, and the post was marked January 2025. So that's why I'm deducing that's probably when he passed away. But no cause was given. And Elliot Wald, he passed away in 2003 from liver cancer. The cast includes Kelsey Grammer as Tom Dodge, Lauren Holly as Emily Lake, Rob Schneider as Marty Pascal, Harry Dean Stanton as Howard. He passed away in 2017 from natural causes. Bruce Stern as Admiral Graham. William H. Macy as Captain Knox. Ken Hudson Campbell as Buckman. Toby Huss as Nitro. Dwayne Martin as Jackson. Jonathan Penner as Spots. Bradford Tatum as Stepnick. Heartland Williams as Sonar. Rip Torn as Admiral Winslow, and he passed away in 2019 from Alzheimer's disease. James Martin Jr. as Orlando Radio Man, Jordan Martin as Orlando Ensign. And as always, there were more cast members, but if I listed every single person from the movie, that would take about 2 hours. So, our summary. The Navy officers discussed Tom Dodge, and his third time. It is his third time coming up for command. One of them thinks he needs to be promoted. Another points out his record and says he's not worthy to be promoted. As they talk, we see Dodge at work. The one admiral points out that Dodge once got so drunk that he passed out and then got a tattoo that says "Welcome aboard" on his penis. That line cracked me up. It was one of my favorite lines, although I put it here and not later. The whole "Welcome aboard" just too funny. Captain Carl Knox tells Dodge how badly he's been doing, and they both think Dodge's Navy career is finished. But then Knox reveals the letter he got and says Dodge has been sent to Norfolk to command his own submarine. In Norfolk, Dodge sees he is going on the USS Stingray SS 161. Um, Dodge is angry because it's a diesel sub from World War II, and he was trained to go on nuclear subs. Sorry. Dodge speaks to Admiral Winslow. The Admiral explains the reason for using the diesel submarines. Dodge does not think the mission has much hope. The Admiral says he will give him two live torpedoes and send in a dummy ship. Dodge thanks him. Dodge meets his submarine crew, including Marty, executive officer. They board the crew onto the submarine. Stuffnick tries to be insubordinate to get put in the brig and not have to go on the submarine. Dodge tells him to get on and that the only way he's getting off is to be thrown off in the middle of the Atlantic Ocean. Marty informs Dodge that Lieutenant Lake has arrived. She enters, and Dodge tells her to keep her clothes on. He thinks she's a stripper. She clarifies she is not a stripper, but Dodge tells her that women are not allowed on submarines. Lake, expre- Lake explains they are now. She says it's part of a trial program. Sorry, dropping my cards here. And okay. I knocked it off. So, he had said about how the women were not allowed on submarines. So I was curious. When were women allowed on submarines? The U.S. Navy officially began allowing women to serve on submarines in 2010. So that was the first year. And from what I had read is they didn't allow women on the submarines simply because they weren't sure what to do with them. Because of the close quarters and with the men, they didn't feel maybe the women would be safe. So 2010, they started allowing that. Dodge introduces the rest of the crew to Lake. The men crack jokes. Dodge tries to speak, but they keep taking what he says as sexual innuendos, such as when he says, "It will be hard on all of us." The men are cleaning the submarine. Stepnick refuses to clean. Dodge says he has no choice but to relocate him, and then yells, "Buckman!" Buckman turns fast with the mop, knocking Stepnick into a vat of black liquid. Wasn't sure what it was. I'm assuming something that they cleaned off, maybe some kind of oil. I don't know. It was clear, so I don't think it wasn't like really thick like oil. So I'm not sure. Dodge sees a crew member named Nitro and asks Marty, our electrician. Marty confirms as Nitro manages to electrocute himself. Marty yells at Buckman for stocking the pantry wrong. Dodge hears and calls Marty into his cabin. He tells Marty that he is concerned about Marty's health. Marty says he's not happy with the submarine and wants to be transferred. Furthermore, he says the crew is the most incompetent crew in history. He says he knows why Dodge is there. Dodge asks him why, and Marty says, "Your weenie tattoo." Dodge refuses to grant him a transfer. Some of the crew are looking in a box that has Lieutenant Lake's clothes. Dodge compliments the men on their cleaning of the submarine and tells them they may leave. Then notices that Lake has no bra and her dress size is off. He asks the men who did it, but no one confesses, so he sends them back and then apologizes to Lake. She responds, "Thank you, but I can take care of myself." As the submarine leaves shore, we hear the Navy song anchors away. They prepare to dive. Dodge asks Lake if she's ever dived a boat. He says the cross currents are strong. She says she has compensated for it. Lake, the dive officer, gives the commands to dive the submarine underwater. As the sub goes under, they start to lose balance. Lake says they have 12 degrees till starboard. Um, so for those of you who are not familiar with boating or Navy terms, starboard is the right hand side of a ship, boat, or aircraft when facing forward towards the bow. Or is that pronounced bow? I'll say I don't know Navy terms either. I looked it up. Google, beautiful thing. Dodge asks about the vents. Emergency vent 2 is shut. Dodge tells them to open it. Dodge tells her the bump on her head looks bad, but she wants to finish the dive. He tells her to take it down to 500 feet. The crew are nervous as the sub goes further down. They hear metal clanging as they hit 500 feet. Dodge congratulates them and they prepare to go back up. The Admiral tells Captain Knox that he and their Lando will protect the Charlton from an unknown submarine. He can't tell any more, but tells Knox he won't have any trouble. A man on Knox's crew says they came into contact with a diesel engine. Knox says if it's diesel, it can't be a submarine. Because remember, that was the USS Stingray they brought back from World War II. Then he says he wants to be sure. Dodge kills the engine on the submarine. Sonar says the other boat is the Orlando. Dodge tells him to prepare to surface. Blake questions him, then quickly says, "Aye, aye, sir." And again, if you aren't familiar with sailor Navy terms, I is AYE is equivalent to the yes that we use. Marty also questions him. He takes Jackson, one of the crewmen, out to put a lamp on the periscope. Once it's on, Dodge has them raise the periscope. The crew and Dodge all sing Wooly Bully. Another great scene there. With all the men singing Bully Bully, and just having a great time. Knox is frustrated. He says, "Perfect. We just chased a boatload of beard up fishermen." Dodge's crew cheers that they tricked Knox and the Orlando crew. One of the crew asks if they are going to blow up something. Dodge tells them, "No, no, we'll just use flares." Admiral Winslow is excited that Dodge won the battle. Admiral Graham is angry that he lost. A crewman tells Dodge that Admiral Graham is on the radio. Dodge tells him Led Zeppelin, 1971. They have won Billy Joel tickets and shirts from the radio station. I had actually wind this scene a couple times because the first time, this is the first time I've seen this movie. The first time that he said Led Zeppelin 1971, I thought, oh, the crew is obviously playing another joke on him and it's not really the Admiral on the phone. Well, what had happened is Nitro accidentally patched it in wrong, so they got a radio station. He answers the question, he wins these Billy Joel tickets and the t shirts. Because then he says, Dodge tells Nitro to connect him to Admiral Graham this time. Dodge asks if Graham called to congratulate him. Graham cuts Dodge's containment in half. Dodge asks if Winslow knows. Graham says that it's not Admiral Winslow's war game. Marty tells Buckman because, sorry, Marty yells at Buckman because there's fingernails in his food. They are under attack again. Dodge tells Lake to go down to the bottom. He tells Lake it confuses the sonar. They hit the bottom and it makes a lot of noise as they fall. One of the crew criticizes Lake. Dodge tells him that it's okay. He tells him to check for damage and that the submarine is going on all silent. Then he tells Lake it wasn't your fault. A man on the Orlando drops money. Sonar tells Dodge it's the Orlando. A man dropped 45 cents. Buckman, who is eating in the kitchen, suddenly lets out a large fart. Um, I'm not gonna lie, fart jokes are always fun. It reminds me of the scene of Blazing Saddles, which is I think one of the first scenes ever to use a fart joke scene, where they're all eating the beans and they're all farting up a storm. Um, it reminds me of that scene. I'm not exactly sure what he was eating. It may have been beans, but we saw earlier some things were mixed up, so he was feeding the wrong things. But anyway, big large fart. Captain Knox asks his crewmen if they heard something. The man says, "It almost sounds like an explosion." The crew on the Stingray are having a hard time with the smell. So if you haven't seen this movie, Buckman's a bigger guy. He's probably one of the bigger on the boat on the submarine. So logic says his farts are going to be bigger, and apparently because what he's eating, smellier. Dodge tries to tell Sonar what to do using charades because remember they're trying to stay silent. Another crew member tries to help, and they're both getting frustrated because Sonar's not getting it. Finally, Sonar understands and starts making whale noises. He had said earlier he has a whole bunch of tapes and he says he's recorded whale sounds because he's trying to learn to replicate those sounds to actually communicate with the whales. And he tells about some things that were going on with the whales. Knox and the crew of the Orlando fall for it and decide it's a false alarm and leave. Dodge tells them to go to the course 027. Marty is not happy Dodge wants to go against Graham's orders, but Dodge tells them that is what they're doing. Dodge tells Sennick he missed an opportunity because one word would have ended everything. Stepanek tells him that would be unethical. He's trying to screw himself, not everyone else. And I like this scene because when Stepanek comes in, he's like, um, at first Dodge even is like, okay, this guy is he's here because his family's forced him. He's got no skills. He doesn't want to be here. He's wise. He doesn't do what he's supposed to. Stepanek, he doesn't want to be there. And he seems like basically a jerk at first. But then here we see he says he's out to screw himself and he doesn't want to be unethical. he wants to be there for his crewmates. He just does not like that submarine. Um, and it seems more it's not so much a case of being nervous or scared of being in that enclosed submarine. It's he finds it boring to be sitting there on a submarine. Just he's not into it. So it's nice to see, despite all that, he cares. He wants to do the right thing. He just doesn't want to openly do the right thing. Dodge goes to his cabin. He salutes a picture of the captain and says, "Live to fight another day, Captain Boone." He goes to where Lieutenant Lake is to talk to her about the submarine's loud landing earlier. He tells her again it was not her fault. She says she's not experienced enough for the job. She asks him how he got over the Murmansk brush incident. He tells her, "I got drunk and passed out. Woke up the next morning with a hangover and a tattoo. I wouldn't recommend the tattoo." So it's like that whole tattoo is a running gag throughout the movie. Keeps coming up. Marty is reading the handbook. He asks to speak with Dodge in private. They go in Dodge's cabin, and Marty says he wants Dodge to relinquish control of the Stingray to him because he thinks Dodge is a bit delusional. Dodge hands Marty the radio, and Marty tells the crew all about what Dodge is doing. They all laugh at Marty. Dodge tells his crew that no one has ever been court-martialed for following the captain's orders. But if they wish to support Marty, they can, and they will not be punished. But still, no one wants to support Marty. Dodge tells Marty he is guilty of attempted mutiny. He asks Stepnick to come to the control room. The next scene, the men sing a pirate song while dressed as pirates. Stepnick brings out a blindfolded Marty to walk the plank. Marty says that they can't do that. Stepnick pushes Marty off the plank and onto a boat that takes him away. The admirals discuss Dodge's behavior. They say he should be court-martialed. Admiral Graham personally wants to be in charge of Dodge's capture. Dodge says there's a lot of ships, and Lake says they must know they are coming. Soner says that the Orlando has everything on. Dodge tells the crew from now on, no unnecessary conversation. Knox tells his crew to prepare for torpedo guidance. Dodge tells them that all that is left now is to get Norfolk. He tell he says to get it, they need to use a bizarre and extremely risky tactic. The crew want to continue. He says they are going through the pins. Lake is afraid of screwing up, so Dodge says he will do the dive commands. The Orlando is in torpedo range. He tells them 3 degrees bubble. Lake corrects him, probably only 1.5. He tells her to either take command or shut up. She is afraid, but finally takes command. Dodge tells her good because he was just guessing. Another great scene here where he trusts Blake more than she trusts herself to the point he's willing to risk giving commands himself and screwing it up until she says, "No, you're really screwing up. I need to take over again." Um, so it's nice to see him do this. The Orlando is having trouble tacking the Stingray. Water sets into the engine room. Stepnick goes to help. The others say they need to abandon, but Stepnick tells them no. Again, we see Stepnick. He wants to help. And he says, "I'm not willing to die on this submarine," even though he doesn't want to be there. He's like, "I'm not going to die, however, on it." So he's going to do what needs to be done. Um, I had a very hard time with this scene. I have an uncle who I never met because he died in 60, and as I told you, I was born in 80. He died on a submarine, the USS Thresher, when he was in the Navy in 1960. It imploded. So the whole water coming in thing reminded me of implosion, even though I wasn't alive for it. And it was still hard for me to watch because I was like, I know what happened because my family's taught me very well about the USS Thresher. So this scene was actually hard for me to watch. And I'll tell you how I liked the movie later, but I probably am never going to watch this movie again. It's it wasn't because it was bad. I just this scene was hard to see. Dodge tells the crew they did a great job. Stepnik says, "Now that was fun." Sorry, my page is twisted. Some of them printed the wrong way, so I have to try to get to the right page here. Okay. Admiral Graham is pissed that they lost Dodge. Lake goes to Dodge's cabin. She asks him how much longer he would have waited. He says, half a heartbeat. He tells her she scared the hell out of him. She asks for permission to speak freely. He grants it, and she kisses him. Then she salutes and leaves. Dodge grins and chuckles. It's also kind of fun to see the romantic buildup between these two, which even at the end, it's not made a big deal of. And this is the only time she kisses him. So you see, I mean, you definitely see that tension between the two of them. Soner says that the tanker is turning. Lake asks if she should stay with them. Dodge says they've got to get to Norfolk now. The Orlando finds the Stingray again. Admiral Graham takes control of the Orlando. Captain Knox tells him that it's his boat, with all due respect. Graham snarkily replies, and right now, it's not, with all due respect. Yeah. Admiral Graham's a bit of a jerk. And by bit, I mean a lot. Dodge looks at the periscope. He and the crew are ready to finish the game. Admiral Graham calls Dodge on the radio. He tells Dodge he's on the Stingray and Dodge is on notice. He says that he expects Dodge to follow orders. Dodge tells him, "Catch us if you can." Dodge's crew cheers. Dodge has them get torpedo tubes ready. Blake questions him. He tells her, "Trust me." He fires the first torpedo and then the second. Graham calls again. He says they are targeted. Dodge congratulates them and then lets him know that they already fired two torpedoes. He says, even though they are dead, obviously not literally, it's because it's a game, they can still win if the torpedoes hit the dummy ship. Graham asks if they are hot or exercise torpedoes. Dodge says, "Oh, they're hot," and counts down as the dummy ship is hit. Everyone on the Stingray cheers again. The Stingray returns to shore, and everyone on land is also cheering. Graham is told that he can forget his third star. He wanted to win because he wanted to get his third star, and he was willing to do whatever it took to get it. Except for it didn't work, obviously. Admiral Winslow tells Dodge he is getting a new Seawolf class nuclear submarine. He says it will come with a proper crew, but but Dodge wants to keep his current crew. And this is you see the change here when Dodge first sees his crew, and he's like, they're all incompetent idiots, basically, just like Marty blatantly says. I don't know if Dodge says it or not. He might have said it, but anyway, he doesn't want to be on this boat with this crew. He's like, they don't know anything. They're going to do badly. And now he's like, no, don't get rid of this crew. These are the people, and he explains, I won this because of them, and I would not have done it without them. So I need to keep these people. He then learns that Stepnik is Winslow's son. He is able to keep the crew, and Winslow leaves. Dodge then dismisses his crew. Dodge quietly says, "Live it up, guys. You deserved it," after they have run off. Sonar turns back and says, "Thank you, sir. I'll try not to overdo it." Lake asks Dodge about the tattoos. He walks with her and he starts to explain. So I gave this movie 4 out of 5 beer nuts. It started out funny, then for a while I was bored, and then it became really good. However, since it was not consistently good, I gave it 4 beer nuts and not 5. And I want to talk about the brilliancy of how these characters were named. We're going to go back. Tom Dodge. Dodge manages to dodge all the attacks. Emily Lake. She is the diving coach. A lake is a form of water. We're going to skip Marty because I have nothing for him. Howard, Admiral Graham, Captain Knox, Buckman, Nitro, the electrician, constantly electrocuting himself. Nitro is a dangerous thing. Stepnik, we learn, is Winslow's son and has his mother's name. So he's a step down from the Admiral. And neck. He's a pain in the neck to everyone. Stepnik. Sonar. The actual sonar, the word sonar, is an anagram, not analogy, anagram. I think it's an anagram. Anyway, it stands for sound navigation and ranging. Sonar can hear anything pretty much when it's not even audible, pretty much, like the change falling. So he is much like a sonar. Winslow. He wins, and he's low on how he does it. He tells him act like a pirate, so he's lowering standards to win, but he's not cheating. So I thought they did a really great job with coming up with names, and others may have had a connection that I just haven't figured out yet. But very awesome job on the names. Of course, MVP for this movie went to our birthday boy, Kelsey Grammer. He did an amazing job. He carried the movie. Obviously, the crew were there the whole time, but he has lots of dialogue. I think he's in the majority of the scenes. Um, Maybe like 1 or 2 seconds where he's not, and then But I mean, yeah, I mean, huge part. And a lot to contend with. So very great job by Kelsey Grammer, but not surprising. As we know from Frasier, how well he played that. He he does what he does, and he does it well. A grand slam line between Admiral Winslow and Dodge when he's complaining that he doesn't want to go on the USS Stingray. Admiral Winslow, don't go by the book. Think like a pirate. I want a man with a tattoo on their dick. Have I got the right man? By a strange coincidence, you do, sir. On baseline between Marty and Buckman in the kitchen. There was a fingernail in my food. Yesterday it was a band-aid. Sorry, the band-aid was holding the fingernail on. Here's a little known fact. I am going to use this section to promote Kelsey Grammer's book, Karen, A Brother Remembers. This is one of the greatest memoirs I have ever read. It's poignant and real. And I mean, it is very real. You see him going, I actually did it through audiobook, but which he personally reads, which is why I liked it. But his going from I'm gonna forgive, not forgive, but maybe forgive. Like he's going through how he's dealing with a person in prison and then dealing with his sister's death and everything in his family. And for those of you who don't know, Kelsey Grammer has had a very hard life. His father was murdered. His sister was raped brutally and murdered brutally. Horrible thing. His two stepbrothers were killed in a skiing accident. Of course, he lost his grandfather eventually, and his grandfather was like a father. Um, Seriously, you have to read the book. If you could listen to it, it's really good because you hear Kelsey doing it. And there are times you hear him literally breaking up. I mean, amazing book. Highly recommended. And this is the last of our birthday movie rewatches. If you liked, as always, please like, subscribe, follow, share, etc. Any buttons you can click. As always, please join the Facebook group. Cheers, that's one woman's opinion. You can follow us on Instagram at Cheers One Woman's Opinion Podcast. Follow us on Twitter X at One Woman's Opinion. Follow us on or join the Reddit subgroup thing at Cheers Rewatch Podcast. And always feel free to email us with questions, comments, opinions, etc. at Cheers One Woman's Opinion Podcast at gmail.com. On March 5th, the podcast will continue with sorry. The podcast will continue with our regular rewatches, starting with Cheers Season 3. And the episode is called Rebound Part 1. And now, I ask you all to join me in wishing. There we go. Waiting for it to load. Waiting for it to load. There we go. I wish you all to join me in wishing Kelsey Grammer a very happy 71st birthday. And that's one woman's opinion.